Reunited and it feels so good.
Is that an actual song, or was that a John Farmer original?
It is a song, but probably not the song like in the tune that I'm singing.
No, I've not heard that one, but thank you. That was wonderful. We are reunited. It is Saturday morning and we're having a little pyjama party.
Yeah, we are.
We're both sat here in our PJs, diving into this really interesting topic of creativity and entrepreneurship with ADHD.
It's nice to be back together, though. I think it's been a while since we've recorded one together.
It has, because the last one was on the road, obviously.
Yeah, well, the last two.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah, creativity and entrepreneurial. I can't say that word.
Entrepreneurship? Is that not how you say it?
And I was going to say entrepreneurialship, but now I'm just making shit. I don't know how to talk. It's still far too early. And even if it wasn't early, I'd find another excuse. Shall we just dive in?
Just dive in, yeah.
Let's dive in.
Go for it.
ADHDs females, ADHD AF. ADHDs females, the podcast. Hi, I'm Dawn.
Hi, I'm Laura, and we are ADHD AF. Seriously. We are two neurodivergent neighbours who moved to the same street at the same time, at the same age, with the same undiagnosed disability. What are the chances?
Since discovering the enormous impact ADHD has had on our lives and the horrifying numbers of missing undiagnosed females, it has become our mission to make some serious noise.
We want to use our voices to raise awareness, break the stigma, and share our experiences in the hope that they help others.
So join us for a chat, or as it's called up here in Aberdeen, a blether.
Trigger warning, we will be covering some really sensitive topics, so please do have a read of the description of each episode before listening.
It's important to note that we are not medical professionals, we're not therapists or coaches, we're not qualified to offer advice or support. What we will do is share our experiences alongside resources and information from professionals. We will talk over each other and we will go off topic and forget the point mid-sentence.
We are both assigned female at birth, which means that we can only speak from the experience of life as AFAB people. However, ADHD AF is an inclusive space. Whatever your gender, you are very welcome here.
Yes, you are.
ADHDs females, ADHD AF.
So we thought we would answer our Ask Us Anything questions first, because when we tried to do it on Reels, we ended up yamming on too long.
Surprise, surprise.
Into Reels. So we thought, okay, let's actually make sure that we answer them properly.
So, our first question is, when are you going to do the sex ADHD episode? I've fallen down a research rabbit hole because I think there is a high link between being hypersexual and ADHD.
I have to say that this question actually did make me lol. So please don't RSD over that lovely person who took the time to send us that. It's just that my knee-jerk reaction was, well, how about you talk to the world, including your parents and your potentially your partner, about periods of hypersexuality? I was like, well, so I think it's a really interesting one. It is a topic that we should cover, but it's not like is nothing sacred. Like, obviously I am an open book, but the point of our podcast is that it is our own authentic experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that I would struggle to talk about that topic completely authentically. So then I would be censoring myself, which would then be inauthentic. But we do have to have a level of protection. You know, we have to be comfortable about what we're talking about. So we definitely do want to talk about it. But what we're going to do is we're going to discuss it with a guest, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that would probably be the best way forward. And the next question we had was, would you give up your quirky ADHD brain in exchange for being normal?
What do you say, Dawn?
It's a weird one because I like who I am as a person, and especially now since I have my ADHD diagnosis, because I understand myself a lot better. And I think if I gave it up, it would change so much about me. But you look at the flip side and you see all the struggles that you've been through and the life you potentially could have had if you didn't have ADHD. And it's a really difficult question to answer.
It's a much more complicated question than I even thought at first glance, because I looked at it and I scoffed. I was just like, of course I would. Like, are you joking?
Yeah.
But then when I thought about it, I realised that my ADHD and feelings of complete ineptitude and inability to function as a normal, in inverted commas, member of society has led me to run for the hills and do all kinds of weird and wonderful experiences. And as I reflect upon my life, I'm so grateful for those experiences. I don't regret any of them. And actually, given half the chance, I would literally be on the next plane tomorrow doing it all again.
Yeah.
So, no. But then, like you say, there has been, and even post-diagnosis and medication continues to be, a fair amount of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it would be nice not to have that. We all have problems, ADHD or not. That's part of the human experience, is pain, right? That's part of what we're all here for. Unfortunately, it's inevitable. But it is hard to be at a disadvantage as anybody with any disability, or, oh God, it's so hard, isn't it? Layers of privilege stripped away, etc. But when you have an invisible disability that people go around saying potentially isn't even real, and you have to fight to be treated for, and struggle throughout your life not even knowing you have it, and build up all of these awful ideas about yourself and depression, etc. Complex question. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, it is a very difficult question, because I guess I've longed my whole life to feel normal and to feel like I fit in.
Yeah.
And to have that would be incredible. But then it changes so much about what you've been through and who you are as a person if you were to take all that away.
It's funny as well, though, isn't it? Because it's like your brain has this way of, it's like a defense mechanism that the human brain always will convince itself that it's right. So when you reflect back on your life, that whole idea of, I wouldn't change anything because it brought me to this place.
Everything happened for a reason.
And actually, it's kind of just bullshit. And I think that a lot of it is, even in terms of love or lust, it's all just fucking brain chemistry.
Yeah.
And so,
it's like when you look back on an old relationship, and you think, and you always go back to the good things.
Yeah.
You miss someone and you look at the good things, and it's really hard to focus on the negative things.
Yeah.
That's why it's so difficult to break away from a toxic relationship, because you're held on to the good stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to really, really focus hard to see the bad things, to remind yourself why you shouldn't be in that relationship.
Yeah.
You always look back and see good over bad.
Yeah. So
very complicated question.
That's an episode
We're not sure. And this is why we can't do reels to answer these questions, because we ramble. So next question is, best way to explain to skeptical friends who think they know better than your shrink.
We've talked about diving into that episode, family and friends, and you sort of have to remember, or we beg you to remember, that this is all very new to us as well, and that this is what this podcast is about, is us on the late ADHD diagnosis roller coaster. It's only this year, that we've started this journey, so that subject in particular is very raw for both of us.
Yeah, we're both
suffering, we're both struggling. I did the whole, here's some articles, here's some educational resources, this is what it feels like. That, I would even go as far as to say part of doing this podcast is one of the reasons why I've done this. I think, on reflection.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you an opportunity to explain yourself to those that want to listen,
Yeah. And I mean, a really good example, my mother, God bless her, she has asked me probably 5 times now. And my parents have been supportive. They have been.
Yeah.
But she's asked me 5 times now. So what exactly is it that this medication does for you? And, reading between the lines, what does that mean? Well, that means she's read whatever she's read about it being meth or addictive or all of the other shit that people...
Or she's not read at all and she just doesn't understand.
Well, no, I don't know. I think it's like a little... It's not a dig, but it's like a, I'm not very comfortable with this. Yeah. You're on drugs, I think. But there's me.
But
that could be my
speculation,
RSD.
overthinking.
Exactly. So yeah, again, it's another question in which the jury's out. But again, what I would say is the only thing that I can give is sending people emails, letters with links to educational resources, other people's experiences and your own, and just being like, you know, and protecting yourself. Like, if you don't understand this, that's okay, but I promise you the doctors do know better, and here, educate yourself, love.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
And at the end of the day, if people around you aren't going to support you and remain skeptical or whatever, then you really need to look at who those people are and the relationships as a whole.
Oh God, we'll
we'll
come back to that. I want to talk about that more.
It's a very difficult one, but people that want to support you and will support you will be there.
I think it's difficult because, in a way, nothing has changed.
No,
because you are who you are, but in reality, everything has changed. Like I say, it's nobody's fault if they don't understand, but it is their responsibility if they want to have a relationship with you to be compassionate and to educate themselves and to support you. It's both wonderful and absolutely devastating to find out that you have a brain disorder.
Yeah.
You know? Because it's like, okay, I can stop hating myself. Oh no, actually I can't, because I've had to deal with this my whole life, and now people are going to not believe me, not support me, or I'm going to see how badly I've been treated, etc. But
this is the biggest change. The biggest change is within yourself.
Yeah.
Like, that is the biggest change. So even though on the outside you're the same person to everybody else, you're changing and evolving inside.
Yeah.
And you need people around you that can accept that and understand that, you know, you're in a position where you're learning to love yourself.
And then on top of that, you also have to bear in mind, as we've said, that neurodivergents tend to congregate. So again, a lot of the people in your life are highly likely to be neurodivergent themselves, and that can be incredibly confronting.
Yeah.
And so some people will react badly and reject you and, you know, refuse to accept diagnosis or whatever, because it sort of points the finger back at them, right?
Yeah.
And that's its own bloody thing, right?
And again, we go off.
But I digress.
Next question. What medication have you been started on, and has it made a difference? Well, because I am not medicated as yet, I can't answer this one, but Laura?
So I am on Elvance. I've been on it since, I think, February, because January I had to fight my case a bit, but that's a whole nother story. But I think it was February that I started, and it's an ongoing journey. We do talk quite a bit about medication in the previous episode with Louise Williams, Pink Pear Bear, so that's something definitely to have a listen to if you haven't already. But it's, like I say, it's a journey. It's such a complicated thing because there are side effects, but the payoff is huge, actually. You know, the things that I've managed to achieve in the last few months are more than I've achieved in absolute years.
Yeah.
But then the downside is I have had people around me say that I'm being different, or things like that. It's difficult. And sometimes I think, oh my God, should I just come off it? Like, I don't really want to do this for the rest of my life. And then, you know, as we were talking about how your brain remembers things, you remember, like, I've been absolutely suffering all of my life. So why the hell would I do that? Why would I do that?
And the difference is that people are maybe seeing in you is that you're more focused.
Yeah.
And that maybe is making you less fun because you're actually focused on the things you want to do.
And less available. I don't know. It's really, really complicated, but I say that the payoff is absolutely huge. But just predominantly positive things. And the most positive being is that I don't have the anxiety, the crippling anxiety that I didn't even know was anxiety, because I've literally had it my entire life.
And we have another question. Newly diagnosed, start meds next week. Any tips or what to expect? What happens now?
It's almost the same question, really, isn't it? What happens now is you're going to have to go through a period of titration where they find the right medication for you. So keep an eye on your side effects. And, you know, it does take a little while to feel all right. But things like if you're feeling dizzy when you stand, if you're having Raynaud's disease and your toes go a funny colour and things like that, probably not the one. So just keep an eye on your symptoms and do speak out and get help, and try different things.
And don't expect a miracle cure.
Yes, don't expect a miracle. And I think it's a lot bigger of a deal. The titration period is a much bigger deal and takes a lot longer than I naively thought that it would.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to a person the other day who I met, and she's ADHD, but she was diagnosed as a child. And when she said to me, how long have you been on meds? Her eyes kind of widened, and she was like, oh, okay. Like, you don't have a clue yet, do you? And I could say, she didn't say it exactly like that, but I could see it in her eyes, and it's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
I've got a long way to go yet, you know?
That's it. What was it like when you first went to the doctors? What did you say? I'm very nervous to go.
I can honestly say, like, the best piece of advice that we always give is to go to the charity ADHD Adult UK. On their website, there is a whole section, I think it's in the resources section, which is called Diagnosis. And in it, and also listen to the podcast, and they talk about the criteria that must be met. And for me personally anyway, having read all of that, listened to all of that, and then compiled what I needed to say and have it written down. Like, in all honesty, I mean, you've listened, I go off on tangents all the time or fixate on the wrong detail. I genuinely believe that had I not have had that help from that charity, thank you, James and I forgot his name.
Alex.
Sorry, Dr. Alex Connor. That is just ADHD. If I hadn't have had that, then I there's every chance that I wouldn't have got diagnosed, because I might have missed a detail that would have meant that I didn't hit the criteria. So arm yourself with these tools. They are available, and that is part of what the charity provides, is that kind of help and support. So do reach out to them.
I recently started the diagnosis process through the NHS. Did either of you feel like you were faking it, or that you didn't actually have it and that it was all just a quick thing your brain did?
Well, the imposter syndrome is real. We
Yeah.
talk about it a great deal. We talk about it with Louise again in the previous episode 13. It's the most common thing. So if we have built up an identity, 20,000 negative things are said to us as children, more than neurotypicals. We've taken on board this identity that we are shit, we are useless, we are lazy, we are all of these things. You turn around and go, oh my God, like, this fits the bill. I'm, at least 80% of these characteristics ring true for me. You go, oh, thank God, this is me. And then you forget that you've got, well, in our case, 38 years or whatever of thinking that you're a worthless piece of shit. What you're going to turn around and be like, oh no, it's okay, I've got a brain disorder. You're going to be like, oh no, did I lie? Did I fake it? I'm actually a useless piece of shit though, right? So
it's also harder when you meet people on a daily basis and you talk about it with them, and everyone says, I'm like that, I do things like that, but I don't have ADHD, I'm like that. And that's really hard, and it just kind of cements that imposter syndrome in your head where you feel like it's not you. But at the end of the day, if you've been diagnosed, it's by a medical professional.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's very, very, very small chance that they're wrong.
No, exactly that. And again, even in terms of medication, like, you wouldn't get that far for a start, like you said, because these are experts. But then on top of that, if you were to take medication, oh gosh, I read this article one day and it was just like, if you give anybody a medical dose of what is effectively speech, then of course they're going to be more productive. And like, literally smoke came out of my ears and really like shot through the roof. I was so angry, because that's not true. Like, that's just not true. If you give anybody any kind of drug, they could either, fall asleep, write a novel, or dance to the washing machine for 15 hours. We are all different. Our brains are all different. And no, if you gave a neurotypical person Elvance, it's not necessarily going to make them really productive. It might just make them really ill or really paranoid, or do you know what I mean? So if the meds aren't working, but like I say, it wouldn't even get to that point.
Yeah.
It wouldn't get to that point.
I'm apprehensive about telling people. Do they treat you different if they know? Am I a dick? Well, first of all, you're not a dick. And it can be scary telling people. I think for me personally, I told everyone straight away, because it was almost like an explanation for who I am and why I am the way I am. So I found it quite easy to tell people. And anyone that treated me different, which I don't think people did, I think most people were quite sympathetic towards it. But there are a few people that have maybe treated me slightly different because of it, but they're far and few between, and I guess I'm quite lucky in that respect.
Yeah, I think I literally haven't had anybody really treat me differently. I've had people treat me definitely more compassionately.
Yeah.
I work quite collaboratively with people. And I think I've felt braver to say, no, mate, like I really can't do the numbers. Can you pick up the slack here? And people have really done that, and they've really helped me, which is really, I know dyscalculia is not necessarily part of ADHD, but it's something that I have. And now that I've said that I'm ADHD, people are being more compassionate. If anybody turns around and says it's an excuse, then that's their issue, and they don't want to be able to show you the compassion because they want to be angry with you, or they don't want to face their own shit, basically. So no, you're not a dick. All people are different, and if people are gonna be shit about it, then they can do one. And
it's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
It's a reason.
It's an explanation.
Yeah, it's a reason. It's an explanation for why things are the way they are.
Yeah, and I think within that, there is the self-compassion. So it's not like, it's a bit like Clementine Ford said, you know, you still have accountability, you still have choices to make. But I think within that, if people understand who you are, then I feel like you can speak out about that. So I could turn around and say, well, I feel really, really upset and over-emotional about that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that person has wronged me or done this or that.
Yeah.
There is an element which could be my RSD that is making me view something in a certain way. And I feel like it gives you the license, for want of a better word, to actually be able to be really honest with people and say, this is how I feel, but I know that that isn't necessarily right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still have people, like a lot of people have taken the piss out of me over the years, like my good friends. It's just what mates do, you know, take the mick out of each other. And that hasn't changed. I'll still get people taking the mick out of me, being like, Dawn, do you have ADHD? Like, you've never mentioned it. Obviously, I mention it all the time. I don't stop talking about it. I mean, to the point that I have a podcast because I talk about it so much. And I can laugh about that a little bit more than I would have when people took the piss out of me before, because I was highly sensitive and people didn't understand me. Whereas now when people take the mick, it's just like, well, of course I talk about it all the time because it's my hyper focus. Because I have ADHD. I overshare. I'm an oversharer. It's what I do.
Yeah.
People don't treat me differently. Just a lot of compassion and stuff. And that's only a positive.
Yeah, anyone who isn't, like, it's not your fault that you have ADHD. It's not your fault that you have mental health issues, but all of it is actually your responsibility. And you have a responsibility to yourself, if people are treating you badly, to put your mental health and your needs first and to show them the door, basically.
Yeah. My brain punishes me for being like this. Then I don't apply for jobs that I want. Rejection sucks.
That one hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's really ouchy.
I can relate to that massively because I've held myself back hugely from doing a lot of things. University, for one, I'm 39 years old and that's me just going to university, and it's something that I've always thought about and wanted to do. But because I've said to myself, I'm not academic, I'm not good enough, I'll never be able to do this, it's stopped me from doing things. Whereas now I'm in a position where I'm just like, I'm not prepared to fail anymore. Like, I'm going to push myself forward, and having the knowledge of ADHD, and eventually I will get help in place. I know that I can do this. So it's hard. Rejection does suck as well, and it definitely puts you off. But I kind of live by the motto of, if you don't try and you don't push yourself, then like, where are you going to be? You're going to be no further forward.
That's a great motto. It's like I always say.
But no, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. So I try and live by that, and that just like, put yourself out there. And if you fail, you fail, but you can do something else.
I have to say, in terms of medication, that has helped me massively.
Yeah.
Because there are things that I really, really worry about that literally would keep me up at night. An example, having just traded at Secret Garden Party, the stuff I make is handmade. We know with handmade stuff it can break, right? In previous years, I would have spent not a lot of time, but some time just thinking, oh my God, what if that breaks? What if they come back? Oh my God, they're going to think my work's really shit. Oh my God, da da da. It's like, no, it's a handmade thing, and people are rolling around doing roly-polies in fields. Things can break. Someone came back the other day and something had fallen off the hat, and I was just immediate, without even thinking, oh no, you Ollie, do you want another one? Do you want me to fix it? Do you want a refund? NFG. That is not me. That's medication.
What's NFG mean?
No fucks given.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you're just like, if you are somebody that is so is so impacted by RSD, as we all are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's gone, but I have found that that's something that medication has helped with.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And one final question. Well, it's not even a question. She just says, no question. Just want to say thank you.
Ah, that's nice. Thank you. We get lots of lovely messages like that.
Yeah,
don't
we do. It's great to hear them.
It's sort of like less overwhelming than it was in the beginning, where we were basically just in floods of tears all the time. But it still really, really means the world, and it keeps us going. Which is, because it is quite a lot of work. It's quite a lot of work.
I guess more work than we realised, yeah.
And with that in mind, that's why we also really appreciate it when people do make a donation via our Buy Me a Coffee page. So thank you so much to everyone who's done that. It really does make our day. Yeah. And it helps cover the costs, because there are outgoings to host a podcast, and it's just like a little bit towards our time, and we are putting in so much time, and really time that we don't have, which means that it's affecting other areas of our lives.
There's a lot of hours that get put into it: social media, editing, responding to messages, etc.
Emails, finding other people to get on board. It's a lot of work, which we love. But it would be great if we could just get paid to do it and put everything else down. That would be great, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. Because then we could really focus. But at the moment, it's a bit of a struggle. So if you would like to make a donation, we'd really, really appreciate it. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/ADHD as females. Yeah. And it's not really about coffees. It's a donation page. And we really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we did a poll just recently on our stories on Instagram. And we asked you, Are you employed, self-employed, or unemployed? 9% of you said unemployed, 19% of you said self-employed, and 72% of you said that you were employed.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
I am self-employed.
And I am employed.
Yeah.
But I have been self-employed. Didn't go so well.
We'll come back to that.
I haven't really had much areas of unemployment in my life, simply by the fact that I can't. Yeah. I can't be unemployed because financially I need to have money. I have no one else supporting myself. So employment is it's like almost like an urgency thing. It has to exist. I need to have an income.
And you work well under pressure as part of ADHD. So that's the file it under your ass. Yeah. Yeah. I've had periods of unemployment. As I've said before, it's not so much that I've been sacked, it's that I've basically had a nervous breakdown. I've overwhelmed myself and I can't cope anymore. And it's really awful because I've really let people down. I've had to say, I'm really sorry, I have to stop now and I can't come back. Yeah. And it's terrible.
I mean, I've lost jobs, but I've quickly been able to find employment again. Whether it's like, I worked in oil and gas in Aberdeen. It's what everyone does up here. But I for years, and then I lost jobs, like well paid, decent jobs, because of lack of focus and commitment and motivation and everything else associated with undiagnosed ADHD, and ended up getting bar jobs because I know I can do them, and then I always work my way up quickly and then get to the management side of things, and that becomes too stressful and too much work and whatnot. So I end up getting on my feet just purely for the fact that I have to and I need income.
Whereas I end up running for the hills and then having to rebuild back up my self-esteem to even be able to leave the house.
Yeah.
Historically.
Yeah. And then I've been self-employed, but self-sabotaged that whole thing. That's a whole other story. Mm-hmm. Then we asked you, would you consider yourself a creative? Yes, no, or my imposter syndrome says no. So we had 16% of you say no. We had 29% of you say my imposter syndrome says no. And 55% of you said yes.
So that's a big yes, because all of those imposter syndrome people are creatives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So...
yeah, a big resounding yes.
Yes.
What about yourself?
Well, we both are, aren't we?
Well, yeah.
So Dawn's at art school, at uni, studying 3D
design.
Yeah. So
ceramics, jewellery, that kind of thing.
So you're an artist and I create festival Ibiza themed headwear and accessories from upcycled military hats, etc., which I've been doing for 12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So creatives across the board.
Yeah. I've always been creative, musically, arty, Like,
Yeah.
even little things like DIY. Like, I always find little creative solutions around my house. Like my little, what do you call it? Shelves and storage solutions and stuff. Like,
and Dawn obviously did the jingle.
ADHD. No, I'm not going to start. Anyway, were you better at creative subjects or at school? Yes or no? We had 32% of you say no and 68% of you say yes.
Yes.
And I can totally get on board with that.
100% yes.
Like, I excelled at the creative subjects and that's where I did well. And when it came to the more academic stuff, even though I was clever and I was good at it, I had no interest, and that's where I suffered.
I think more for me, and this is something that I think is quite interesting. So when we've looked at these, I mean, actually, on a second reflection, they are leaning more towards creativity. So perhaps when I was thinking about it, it was not such an obvious divide. I was thinking about it in terms of actually RSD. So for me, I mean, as I've said, I really have very severe dyscalculia. It's very severe, and so maths is obviously an absolute nightmare. I never got maths GCSE. Science I was interested in, so I was better at, but obviously the two were paired together. So I started in top set for science, I was in bottom set for maths, and then when the two were paired together, I was put into the bottom half of the year.
Yeah.
Because of my not being able to do numbers. But actually, I'm good at writing, even though it's a disciplined thing, it's a creative thing. But I wonder, just putting it out there in terms of creativity and ADHD, whether in the world we are all creatives in our own way, right? But actually maybe the lean towards creativity and entrepreneurship lies in RSD. So I could be creative and I could write because I couldn't get it wrong.
Yeah.
If it's opinion based, or if, it's your interpretation of how to draw something or how to paint something, there's not a wrong answer. And in rejection sensitive dysphoria, we don't want to get things wrong. We're afraid of failure, perfectionism, etc. And rejection. Actually, perhaps that's why we excel in these environments, is because we're free, that we can't get it wrong.
Yeah, there's more freedom.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The next one was, are you an entrepreneur? Yes, no, or wannabe? So we had 60% of you said no, 18% was yes, and 22% said wannabe.
So that's the one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the one where I was like, okay, this is interesting.
I'm a wannabe.
Yeah.
I'm a wannabe. Like I've won like so many little ventures and ideas that I've had, but I've just never been able to get anything really off the ground. And that's where I struggle. And I think that's a big part of the ADHD that holds me back from doing that.
Yeah. It's funny because I am, but in terms of money and dealing with all of that, it's never made me loads, but it's opened the door to opportunities, which were the payoff for me, but also that led to other work.
Yeah.
And that's how I've got employment and worked for other people, is through what, in effectively is a side hustle, because it doesn't necessarily pay the bills, has opened doors to other things that have paid the bills and got me to the Secret Garden Party, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's like I've had side hustles, but because I've also had to have these full-time jobs as well, and, had to make sure that I have an income to pay my rent, pay my bills. Like that, I think that's part of what's held me back from doing things, because I'm unable to take the risk and go into something without, with that financial risk and not being able to pay my bills. So like when I had my business and it was a little craft business, like I would have loved to have done that full time and been able to commit to it properly. But what definitely held me back was the fact that if I quit my job to do this full time, this doesn't guarantee me a regular income.
But therein lies the trick, right?
Yeah.
Because the point is, you've said yourself that when things become laborious, you struggle to do them. But you have to pay the bills, and that's the file it under your arse. And that's why there's an argument to say that when you go into a business and you have your own business, you have to put your heart and soul into it.
Yeah.
And there is the fire lit under your arse.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
For me, an office job and getting a good salary, I know it's easy money for me. It's like that makes things easier for me to take myself and go into a business world. I know that that's going to be really difficult, and I know that there's a good chance that I'm going to run away scared, because that's what I do.
That's so funny, because there's another difference, because I'm the exact opposite. I can't, like, after a certain amount of time, I can't get out of bed and be around people who I feel like are watching me, are looking over my shoulders. Like, you know, a chain email with people CC'd in, like, is enough to give me, like, heart palpitations.
Yeah.
Like, to constantly be watched and be potentially getting it wrong is just too much for me to bear. I can't cope. I crumble completely.
So I find that, and the thing is, I find it easy, like being in a job, like just sat at a desk, and I just have to get through those days, and that's fine. It's easy for me.
Yeah.
Whereas once you put that immense pressure on yourself, and everybody's watching you, and if you fuck up, it's your fault. Like, this is on you.
But
like,
that's so interesting, because what you're saying, what you're describing, is exactly how I see an office job. I'm actually next to people. I'm in a room with people. They are quite literally looking at me. With your own little craft business online, no one gives a shit. Nobody's looking at you, love.
Yeah.
No one's really looking.
I feel like everyone's looking at me there. Whereas in an office job, if I fuck up, I'll just be like, all right, I'll quit. Like, I'm never going to speak to you again. I'm just going to quit, and I'm just going to get another job somewhere else. And I'll do that until I fuck that one up as well. And for me, I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Super, super interesting.
But that's the point, right? Is that that's what we hit home about all the time. And that's why it's interesting reading these results as well, is that there is no one size fits all. The disorder presents itself differently in every single person. And on top of that, we're all individuals with our own life experiences, with our own ideologies and family history and all the rest of it. So the idea that creativity and ADHD go hand in hand is not necessarily true at all.
Yeah, and this one, I guess, this next poll question kind of speaks for itself as well. Do you have a creative side hustle? 30% of you said yes, and a whopping 70% of you said
I
no.
couldn't believe that. My jaw was on the floor, and that's what made me go, oh, hang on a minute, this is bullshit.
Yeah. And finally, we asked, do you have an abandoned creative business? Yes, no, or multiple. So 38% of you said yes. 51% of you said no, and 11% of you said multiple.
So it's the majority.
Majority is no.
Yeah. So I'm multiple. No. So if you add that and that, it's still the majority, is it? So 38 plus 11. So it's almost half.
Yeah, 49.
Because multiple and yes is still yes, isn't it? Yeah.
But yeah, so half and half.
Half and half.
But yeah, I'm multiple.
Yeah.
I've tried my hand at so many things. I started doing nails.
I did nails.
Yeah.
I did nails for a bit, but I couldn't deal with the fact that they're watching you do it.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed doing it, and I could get right in there and be creative, but someone is quite literally watching every single frigging brushstroke whilst you're in, like, breathing distance from them.
There's a trick to it, though. Just talk your ass off to them.
Yeah, then I wouldn't be able to concentrate. Just have, like, nail varnish up their arms.
But yeah, I've done nails. I was hair braiding. Lots of different things.
I used to give massages at Cafe Mambo in Ibiza. 10-minute massage, complete blag. There was a whole company that did it, and my friend just said, do this. And I managed to get in Cafe Mambo. It made shitloads of money.
Nice.
It was a total blag. But yeah, unfortunately, didn't last that long.
Yeah, and not just failed things, but lots of ideas. Like, I've had so many ideas.
Yes. Do you remember when I had that ridiculous idea about doing that kind of early morning rave thing, wake up thing in Aberdeen? And then it's like, why would I want to get up at like 5 a.m. and push something that people probably don't even want to do?
Yeah. So many ideas, and that things that probably would have been quite lucrative as well, but just never got off the ground.
Yeah.
Just my head full of things. It's like, I could do this, I could do that, I could do everything, but end up doing nothing.
Some of them are gold, though. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of ideas. Well, I've got a couple of quotes here. I feel like this is going to be the world's longest episode, but we might as well carry on as we're in. So one is from Forbes, which says, what half of this drove me mad and half of this is good. Of course, in our, inverted commas, over-diagnosed, over-medicated culture, oh my God, give me strength, we choose to only focus on the negative aspects of ADHD, which include procrastination, inability to concentrate, forgetfulness, disorganisation, and easily distracted. One way to think about ADHD is having a low boredom threshold. Those with the trait become frustrated with routine. But there is so much more to the trait that can be leveraged to an advantage. ADHDers are often at their best in crisis mode, multitasking, and free associating to intuitively reach a solution. And if they find something they truly love to do, they are able to focus on it for hours on end. So, as I said, half of that can quite literally suck my dick.
Yeah.
You're going to tell us that ADHD is overdiagnosed, Forbes? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
How insulting and disgusting. My blood is boiling. But the rest of that is great. So thanks, Forbes.
But I find that quite interesting. It speaks a bit about the boredom thing as well.
Yeah.
And this is one of my biggest things is I get bored of even the tasks that I enjoy when it becomes work.
Yeah.
When it becomes like something that has to be done as opposed I'm just doing this for me.
Yeah.
So if I'm drawing, if I'm doing art, if I'm hyper focused on a task that I'm enjoying, then it's great. But as soon as something becomes work,
a chore,
then I can get super bored.
Yeah.
Even if it's something I love, and that infuriates me.
Do you feel like you actually feel the boredom, or as in like, oh God, I'm bored? Or is it just like your brain goes, let's do something else?
I don't even know if it's boredom. It's almost like task paralysis in a way. I don't even know how to describe it, but I can literally be doing something. I'll be like, right, I want to do this. And I can literally be doing something and just be like, nah, I'm over it.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's almost like distractibility as well. Like I'll think of something else, like because I'm constantly churning, thinking of things. I'll think of something else to do, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like a more interesting thing to do than what I'm doing right now. And then I'll get onto that task.
Yes.
My most ADHD thing that I've done this week will explain that.
Yes, absolutely. I have another little snippet here from Scientific American. It says 2 core symptoms, inattention and impulsiveness, suggest a connection between creativity and ADHD. Inattention, which occurs more frequently in those affected with the disorder, likely leads to mind wandering or the drifting of thoughts from an activity or environment. Such drifting can lead to new, useful and creative ideas. So therein lies the link. Yeah. But again, you've only got to look at most of our poll results to see that it's not a definite link. And for example, I'm really so embarrassed that I forgot Dr. Alex Connor's name. But like Dr. Alex Connor, Dr. James Rand of ADHD Adult UK and the ADHD Adults podcast, like, I'm not going to say they're not creatives because I believe that we are all creatives, but they're not in a creative industry. That's not what they do for work. I do believe that James is a bit of a musician, but you know, the idea that we are all these entrepreneurs, creative people is just, it's a stereotype and it's not necessarily true at all because of things like RSD, task paralysis, etc. And the different levels at which these different symptoms affect us are going to make living a creative entrepreneurial life incredibly challenging.
And we've been messaged by people saying that they, you know, like they'd like to speak to people that work in a more professional business. We've had a lawyer and other people message us saying, you know, that they would like some input from that side of things because not everyone is creative. Not everyone is in that. And it is very much a stereotype.
Or even sees themselves as a creative when they are because of their low self-worth or self-esteem, you know, one thing I would like to talk about is another myth of medication, ADHD medication affecting your creativity. So I've heard that a lot. I've heard that from friends. We also had Sophia Hilton say that she was frightened and that a doctor even told her, be careful with your profession, that it's going to take away your creativity. And I will say to that, well, I absolutely call bullshit. That is not the case for me at all. If anything, it has made me, or it's taken away from the thing that you talk about, Dawn, with the thing that you love becoming a laborious task and then getting distracted and having to do something else. It's enabled me to sit and see a creative project through to completion in a sitting and sit for a long time and focus on details. I've made, I would say, for this festival that I just traded at in the Emporium of, if you fancy following us, little plug there. I think a couple of the hats I made are my best work. Genuinely. And it's because I didn't sit and think, oh no, that's a bit too hard or that's a bit too risky. It was just like, I've got an idea and I'm just going to sit and I'm going to focus on it and I'm going to do it and I'm going to look at the details and I'm going to try.
Amazing.
Instead of thinking, oh no, this is a piece of shit, I'm going to give up now.
And I've seen what you've made and so cool.
Thank you.
so cool.
So in terms of medication, I don't believe that to be true at all. But what I'm seeing, and again, I am by no means an expert. This is our exploration in real time. So in my current lived experience, what I'm seeing is that there is always a payoff. So what has changed, as we've said, is I have had friends say that I'm not as fun because I'm not seeking the oblivion that I used to.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very aware of behaviour that is not on. And that's the problem, is that I realised that for the best part of 38 years, I've been a complete mug.
Yeah.
And everybody's needs have been more important than my own. I've agreed to things I don't agree with. I've just hardcore people pleased. And so then that's how people see me. Now, what the trade-off that I'm experiencing is that I feel slightly mistrusting of people. I feel mistrusting of the people in my life, and it's sad. And I do wonder, basically, you know, full disclosure, I came round to Dawn's house yesterday and had a complete meltdown and bawled my eyes out at her. And I wonder whether that's because I'm in a different stage of what is effectively the grief cycle of finding out that you have a late ADHD diagnosis, what we call the late diagnosis roller coaster. And I've been very angry. Mm-hmm. And I wonder now if I've hit another point in which I'm very sad. Because what I see when I look around me is I'm just a bit like, well, if you liked me when I wasn't a person and all that mattered to me was if you were all right and that I was pleasing to you, or, you know, I just made sure that all of your needs were met, then who are you to me, actually? Yeah. And I see it all the time, is that my habitual reaction is to be like, what do you need? Are you okay? Yeah, no, don't worry about me. I'll just sit here on the floor starving, or do you know what I mean? Whatever else. And then people are not seeing if I'm okay and treating me decently as I see them treating other people. And so now it's like you have to take on board the fact that you've had a lifetime of pretty much being mistreated. You see it, you're building up your value and your worth, and what? Now I have to look at it some more. It's like, and that's how I felt yesterday. It's like I can't bear to look. I'm not talking about my marriage, by the way, just in case that came across that way. Big is a ledge, as per. But I just mean in terms of like, yeah, it's like, not only do I have to deal with the fact that I've got a brain disorder, that I've been mistreated, I now have to look around me with a fresh set of eyes and a clearer head and some self-worth and go, oh, everyone treats me like a mug. That sucks. It's sad.
But the thing is, it's not just people treating you like a mug, and you can look at it that way. But I think as well, you have to look at it. You've allowed people to treat you like that.
Oh God, 100%, 100%.
So when you start treating yourself with some respect and love, like you deserve, you realise that you won't stand for certain things anymore.
Exactly.
And that might change relationships and dynamics with friends, family, whoever. But at the end of the day, if there are people that are still going to treat you like a mug, even through these changes, then that's when you have to start really looking at these relationships.
So it'd be interesting if anybody has any feedback on that has started medication, you know, which is rare because we're actually really predominantly undiagnosed. Thank you very much. I would love to hear we would love to hear what you think the payoff is, because it's definitely not been my creativity that's lost.
Yeah.
So what is it that you've lost and that's changed? And for me, it's being such a wreckhead and a mug.
Bless.
And both of those are great.
You're not a mug. You're not a mug. Mugs are for tea. Tea is for me.
So we've got to do our differences.
Yes.
And which are that we have realised that we really do need to help each other, because Dawn has severe task paralysis, as I have done for many years, but the medication has helped me with that. What it hasn't helped me with is time blindness. So I will sit down and do a task which I think is going to take me an hour, and turn around, and next thing you know, 4 hours have passed, and it means that jobs such as doing the social media are affecting other aspects of my life.
And Laura's having to do more of that because I'm unable to do it through task paralysis.
Yes. So what we're going to do is try out this body doubling.
Yeah.
And actually, sit down for an hour at a time and go, right, what needs to be done today? You do this, I'll do that. And then if we get in nowhere, we swap. Or Dawn can say, what should I say here? Or I'll say, is this all right? Right there in real time.
Yeah.
And then an alarm's going to go off and we'll go, do you know what? That's enough for today. So you might see less on social media because it's literally taken over my entire life.
Yeah.
But we hope that isn't going to affect our listenership. We're about to hit 25k today.
I know.
But if it does, then obviously we're going to have to push even harder with social media again, because the point is we just want to get the message out there.
Yeah.
We know that it is helping people to feel validated and to know that they are not alone in their struggles. And so it's an important message that we're delivering, and that's why we need to keep going.
Yeah.
But do I need to do that many hours a week of social media is yet to be discovered.
Yeah. It's a hard balance, but body doubling we know works, especially with people with ADHD. And I have a cleaner, I spoke about this recently, and it's quite funny. My cleaner comes round and she doesn't just clean and I do nothing. I clean with her.
Yeah.
And I find, like, it's not just cleaning, like, just little things that I wouldn't expect her to do. She'll do the cleaning while I organise my house better. And doing it with her, I know I have that time every fortnight to do that. And I do it with her, and that helps me get so much done. Like, I get more done in that 2 hours than I would in the whole of that 2 weeks.
And it's body doubling.
It's so helpful.
So yeah, we're gonna try that. Obviously with that in mind, please do keep sharing our posts or sharing our podcast in social media groups. If we can get the message out there and not have to put so many hours into social media, that would be really, really great. As ever, we are hoping to make some money out of this so that we can focus all of our time into it at some point. So again, if you can help us there. But Dawn, what is the most ADHD thing you've done this week?
Well, Laura, last night was probably the one for me, and it was a culmination of things. Last night you came round for a bit, and we were going to do some recording, but we cancelled it.
Instead, I had a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, so we cancelled it to this morning. So I essentially had an evening to myself, and Friday night, and I'm off the booze just now because I'm trying to be healthy. Whatever. You don't need this information. But I came upstairs and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start my summer assignment for uni. So I started doing my research and I got my sketchbook out and I started drawing. And about 5 minutes in, I was over it. I was ready. I was already looking at something else that was on my shelf and I was like, oh, I'll have a look at that. So a piece of wood on the shelf that a friend had asked me to do some pyrography with, I picked that up and I started sketching on that and I thought I'll go and do that. And then I went onto my laptop and I thought I better reply to some messages, some emails. So I replied to an email and then I got distracted again and then I looked at my guitar, but my nails are too long to play guitar just now. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go and see if I can download some tracks and get GarageBand out on my laptop and record some music and sing some stuff. And about 2 seconds in, I was like, I'm bored of this as well. And I was so bored of everything that I was doing and I couldn't focus on one thing, even though I wanted to.
And they're all things that you like and that you're good at.
And I couldn't focus on anything. So I took myself to bed at 8 o'clock. And I sat in bed and then I watched TV, but I can't even focus on the television. I have to play games on my phone at the same time.
As me. I'm the same with that.
And it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And
it's so frustrating because I want to focus on things, but I just do not have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I was going to mention...
A very important, enormous, exciting thing to mention.
Is that I got a bit of exciting news. Last week I got an email from the psychiatry office telling me that they were going to get an appointment for me in September. So I look as though I'm potentially getting my ADHD assessment finally through the NHS in September. Although I will add that I emailed her again on Wednesday because I hadn't heard anything this week. And she said she was extremely busy and I would see an email shortly. Okay. And I still haven't had an email with an official appointment.
But still, things are looking up for sure.
I'm hoping that next week I will see that email and I will have an official date.
You have had to push very, very hard, so potentially some more pushing might be needed, but you're another huge step forward on the path.
I cried. I was at my desk at work and I literally just started bawling as soon as I read the email because it's just... There's just been no light at the end of this tunnel for so long, and slowly there's a little light appearing, and it's like a huge relief to know that I'm eventually going to get the help that I need.
Yes.
And maybe be able to focus on one task for one little moment.
Yeah. So mine is a really the word that I can never say, dyscalculia.
Well, I always thought it was dyscalculia, but then I realised it was dyscalculia.
Like dyslexia, dyscalculia, I think is right, But basically, I was running this event, as I said, the Emporium at the Secret Garden Party, and I was worried that it was in boutique camping, which I've never done before. I was worried. I don't really like VIP culture, full stop, at all. But I get it in terms of a festival, because some people are not campers and they want a little bit more luxury, and I totally get that. But I was nervous because I didn't know what kind of people would be in boutique. So I didn't know if my, ridiculous hats with smiley faces on would be received well, or if they might be the type of people that would prefer or that would see a festival as more Coachella-y. Do you see what I mean? So my friend makes these beautiful hats. 39 millinery she's called. So she has these beautiful fedoras in like camel and rust, as opposed to my like neon pink nonsense. So I brought some of those to the festival with me, and in case anybody wanted something a bit more like that, which they did. So we sold a few of those. And in the back of my head, and I'm not saying it was constant, but in the back of my head, I was thinking, oh my God, I hope I don't fuck that up. I hope it's all right. I hope I don't let my friend down. I hope I get all of those hats back. Just like a little voice, but I had so much going on managing that event that there were lots of little voices. So it wasn't really until I got back that I was like, right, I need to sit down and do this. And I put it off. And I started to get like an increasing anxiety, which was quite obviously that, but my brain wasn't telling me it was that. When I sat down to do it, the first thing I did was I opened up the box, and it had 2 lists of things, and a logical brain would notice that that's an identical list twice. But my brain is not logical, so I thought that she'd given me double the amount of hats that she had in the first place. So that was the first panic, was shit, did I actually have that many hats? I definitely didn't sell that many hats. Anyway, by the time I go through the list to tick it off, 2 times this, blah, 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 what comes back, somehow I managed to convince myself I had lost 4 to 6 of her hats, as in they'd been stolen. And so I started to completely freak out. I messaged her, I'm so sorry. Like, please don't worry. I'm obviously going to reimburse you, which would have cost me loads. She's like, I don't want you to pay me the money. I was like, I don't want you out of pocket on my watch. I'm so sorry. This whole idea that I was not responsible enough to do that for my friend, which, is partly RSD and years of feeling irresponsible and inept and all the rest of it. Led me to this place, and then my dyscalculia led me to this place where I was already convinced that I'd fucked it before I even started. And it took Big coming along, and he's like, right, let's look at this. He's like, because it became one of those maths questions. If you have 75,000 sweets, you give 6 to your nan and 2 to your mum. How many have you got left? It felt like that. So I'm looking at this list.
I'm trying to do the maths in my head for that now.
But it's one of them. So I'm looking at it, and it's like, right, 2 times camel with a pin, 2 times black with stars. And I'm trying to do it, and I just couldn't do it. So then I was convinced I didn't even have enough of her hats left. Big looks at it and he goes, well, hang on a second. Right, she gave you 16 hats. There are 13 hats left. How many did you sell? 3. They're all here. Honest to God, the drama. It's about an hour of my life, like having a complete panic attack, apologising profusely to my friend, to then just go, I'm really sorry, babe, I've actually got them all, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the hell? Oh. That is the most ADHD thing I have done this week.
Oh, it's funny, isn't it? You have to laugh about
these things. In hindsight, it's funny. But yeah. There we go.
But this episode has, been about creativity and entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship.
Whatever. But it kind of leads us on to what next week's going to be about as well.
Yes.
Our guest.
We have a very exciting guest. Are we saying it or keeping it secret?
I say we're going to keep it secret for now.
Okay.
Just in case anything doesn't happen and we don't end up with them all.
Okay, yeah. In case we forget to press record again, and they're not so nice to us.
Just in case. But we have an exciting guest next week, and we're excited to share.
Entrepreneur, creative, lovely lady is joining us, who has very recently been diagnosed, and a lot of you will have heard of her.
Yes,
she has a huge following, and she's a lovely person, and we're very excited to meet her.
And on that note, I think we should
shut the hell up, because this episode's really long,
and I'm going to have to edit.
Yeah, it's all right. We'll sit here. We'll do it together. So If you have enjoyed this episode, we hope that you have. Like, it's one of those, it's like, good morning to everyone, except for Forbes, who said that thing about ADHD being overdiagnosed, never over-medicated, who, again, can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, we would really, really love you to make a donation to our Buy Us a Coffee page, buyusacoffee.com/ADHD as females, because it really, really helps us, keeps us motivated, covers the costs, and, you know, potentially if we made enough money from it, we can start doing some merch, which a lot of you were asking us about, and things like that. It's a real juggling act with time at the moment.
And if you don't have any spare cash, then do not worry. You can help us out by liking, rating, subscribing.
Even when you like a post, you press save. That helps us in the search engines as well.
And sharing us on any groups or pages that you might be on.
And those reviews are really helping us as well, which is amazing. We're back in the top 50 for Spotify UK, Society and Culture. And there was a global Apple one, which was a lot higher than expected.
Yeah, we're like 173 globally in health and fitness.
Health and fitness, the pair of us. But yeah, so all of that, those hitting those stars, writing those reviews really, really helps as well. And we're so, so, so grateful. Do reach out to us. We love to hear from you. And we just apologise if it takes us a little while to get back to us. Please do not forget, we both have ADHD.
Yeah.
And me being medicated is not a cure. You just heard that ridiculous story. I'm still howling at the moon. Let's be honest.
And I'm a mess.
She wasn't a mess when I came round to her tiny house and sat on the sofa and screamed and cried. You're not a mess at all. No, we're doing all right. We're doing our best. We're supporting each other. We love hearing from you. Leaning into the community is our advice, and as ever, reaching out to people like Louise, Pink Pear Bear, ADHD Adult UK, the charity.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in it together, basically.
Yeah. We got you.
We got you.
We got you.
But shut up. We've been talking for so long.
Yeah. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to everyone else. And yeah.
Don't take any shit.
We love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
ADHDs females, ADHD AF, ADHDs females.